Let's talk about the unfortunate events surrounding Daisy Coleman. Her story involves several young girls who fell victim to their own naivety and carelessness. They believed that their troubles would fade away, but life took an unexpected and tragic turn. These schoolgirls faced cruel bullying from classmates and even people they once considered friends. In a documentary called Audrey and Daisy, their stories unfolded. These incidents occurred in different places and at different times, yet they shared a common thread. Psychological violence can be even more challenging to endure than physical harm. Let's rewind to the beginning. The Coleman family. They lived in Albany, Missouri, and were a close-knit, happy bunch. Michael and Melinda, the parents, both worked in the medical field. Michael was a surgeon, while Melinda was a veterinarian. They raised 4 children together: sons Charlie, Tristan, and Logan, along with their only daughter, Daisy. The Colemans were respected members of their town, and life seemed idyllic until tragedy struck. Daisy Coleman's life took a tragic turn when she was just 12 years old. Her family, avid sports fans, was on their way to a soccer game in a neighboring town. Unfortunately, the weather turned bad, and their car skidded on the wet road, colliding with another car traveling in the opposite lane. Daisy's father lost his life in the accident, but thankfully, the children escaped serious injuries. The Coleman family, grieving their loss, decided to move to Maryville, Missouri, seeking a fresh start. There, the children attended a local school, and their mother found work at a veterinary center. Slowly, they began to heal and make plans for the future. Daisy was an active girl, participating in dancing, gymnastics, and cheerleading at school. She also had a hidden talent. She was an excellent artist and dreamed of becoming a designer someday. At school, she had many friends who described her as bright, kind, open, and cheerful. Among them was her best friend, Paige. The two were practically inseparable, attending school together, sharing the cheerleading team, and spending nights at each other's houses. On one winter break night in 2012, Paige stayed over at Daisy's house. They watched movies, indulged in sweets, and chatted late into the night. Daisy, feeling adventurous, sneaked down to the home wine cabinet and swiped a bottle of hot liquor. She and Paige drank it after midnight. Little did they know that this seemingly innocent act would set off a chain of events that would forever alter their lives. Matthew Barnett, a popular guy at school and an up-and-coming soccer player, was friends with Daisy's older brother, Charlie. They often visited the Coleman family home. Daisy felt flattered by the attention from an older boy and eagerly chatted and flirted with him. When she mentioned spending the night with a friend, Matthew invited both girls to a party at his house, emphasizing that they could have fun without their parents. Daisy and Paige accepted the offer and quietly slipped out of the house through Daisy's bedroom window. Soon, Matthew and his buddy picked them up, and they headed to Matthew's house. Several other kids from their school were already waiting there. The party took place in the basement, accessed through the garage. As soon as Daisy and Paige entered, they were offered homemade alcoholic cocktails. Matthew, persistent and pouring drink after drink for Daisy, seemed intent on impressing her. Paige, concerned about her friend's level of intoxication, tried to intervene, but she was brushed aside. Meanwhile, Paige had her own romantic interest, Nicholas, whom she'd long had a crush on. They flirted and drank together, eventually seeking privacy in another room. Paige knew what would likely happen next. When they returned to the main room, Daisy was nowhere to be found. The door to the adjacent room, slightly ajar, revealed Daisy lying there, almost unconscious. Matthew had taken advantage of her vulnerable state, and to make matters worse, another partygoer named Jordan was filming the whole scene. On his cell phone, it later came to light that he took advantage of Daisy's unconsciousness and had sexual intercourse with her. The boys put both girls in the car and drove them back to Daisy's house. Paige had sobered up a bit by then, but her friend was still half-conscious and unable to stand on her own. Soon, Daisy started vomiting, and the guys literally dragged her out of the car while she was still vomiting. Matthew tried to help by gathering her hair, but he wasn't doing a good job, and Daisy's hair and clothes ended up soiled. The guys instructed Paige to go inside, assuring her they would stay with her friend until she sobered up a bit. Believing them, Paige went back into the room through the window without waking anyone. She lay down on the bed and, being still drunk, fell asleep right away. In reality, the boys deceived Paige. As soon as she returned to the house, they left Daisy lying on the cold ground on a January night. They had first taken off her sunniette, later explaining that they were afraid someone would see them with a drunken Daisy and call the police. Allegedly, they removed the sunniette because Daisy was vomiting and had soiled it. Daisy lay outside in sub-zero temperatures for several hours before she regained her senses. Initially, she thought she was dead because she couldn't feel her limbs or move. She was also not wearing shoes or socks, and no one could explain where they had gone. Her wet hair was frozen to the lawn, and she had to make an effort to lift her head and look around. Eventually, Daisy crawled to her own doorstep and slammed her hand on the front door several times. Melina's mother woke abruptly, stirred by the noise. Assuming it was the dog requesting entry, she hurriedly opened the door. However, her senses nearly deserted her when she discovered her daughter lying on the porch, vulnerable and barely conscious. Daisy was undressed, without shoes, and her limbs bore signs of frostbite. The mother or gently called her sons, who promptly carried their sister inside the house. Daisy, clad only in a t-shirt and thin pants, trembled violently and emitted occasional sobs. The scent of alcohol clung to her. Initially, the mother tried to warm her with blankets, but realizing it was insufficient, she instructed her sons to place Daisy in the bathtub. There, Melinda carefully removed her daughter's clothes and noticed bruises and abrasions on her thighs. It became evident that Daisy had suffered abuse. The mother promptly contacted the police and medical professionals. At the hospital, Daisy's condition raised serious concerns. Tests revealed her blood alcohol level was twice the norm, and her body exhibited signs of frostbite and the aftermath of rough intercourse. Unfortunately, Daisy's memory of the previous night had been almost entirely wiped. The police then turned to questioning Paige, who disclosed the entire sequence of events. Both friends admitted to taking alcohol from the home bar without permission, hoping no one would notice. The harrowing events unfolded as follows. Molina's mother awoke to the noise, assuming it was the dog seeking entry. To her shock, she discovered her daughter, Daisy, lying helpless and semi-conscious on the porch. Daisy was undressed, without shoes, and her limbs bore signs of frostbite. The mother urgently called her sons, who carried Daisy inside. The chilling truth emerged. Daisy had been abused while unconscious. The police found her phone in the snow containing intimate correspondence with Matthew. The subsequent investigation led to questioning the three boys involved. Matthew, the host of the ill-fated party, confessed to inviting two girls, claiming they willingly participated. He denied buying Daisy a drink, but later admitted to pouring alcohol to melt the ice in her heart. Matthew insisted the intimacy was consensual, emphasizing that Daisy was conscious. Jordan, another friend, filmed the encounter but later deleted the video. Nicholas acknowledged having sexual intercourse with Paige, who seemed agreeable. All three boys were taken into custody, with Nicholas being the sole one released. The tragic aftermath of these events underscores the importance of raising awareness about such neglected issues. The harrowing events surrounding Daisy Coleman's assault and its aftermath are deeply disturbing. The Netflix documentary Audrey and Daisy sheds light on the separate sexual assaults of two teenage girls, Audrey Pott and Daisy Coleman. The tragedies had devastating consequences. Audrey ended her life, while Daisy survived but faced immense challenges. Coleman was part of the cheerleading squad at school, but she got kicked off. Sadly, she became an outcast. Even though her brothers tried to support her, Daisy faced anonymous calls and texts that were mean and threatening. Her mom also received similar messages. Daisy's best friend, who was also bullied, had to switch schools. Daisy gradually sank into a deep sadness and avoided people. Things got worse when their house was set on fire. The Colemans decided it wasn't safe to stay in the city and moved to another state so Daisy could finish school. Years later, when Daisy was in college, her story gained attention online. People from all over the country, many of whom had experienced bullying too, stood up for her. A documentary called Audrey and Daisy was made, highlighting the issue of violence and harassment. The second character in the story, Audrey, faced a similar situation in California. She fell into depression and tragically took her own life. Audrey left a message online saying her life was destroyed and she saw no reason to keep going. The documentary project and the public support it received inspired the Coleman family to keep fighting for justice. They managed to reopen the investigation, and this time Matthew Barnett was found guilty. However, his punishment was shockingly light. Just 4 months of probation and a pitiful payment of less than $2,000 to the victim. After college, Daisy moved to Colorado for a fresh start. She found work as a tattoo artist, using her artistic talent. She also participated in another documentary project. Things seemed to be improving, but in the summer of 2018, tragedy struck her family again. Daisy's mom and younger brother Tristan visited her by car. Sadly, they got into an accident and Tristan lost his life on the spot. Melinda, Daisy's mom, suffered serious injuries. This heartbreaking event shattered Daisy's already fragile emotional state. She withdrew from socializing, finding solace only in her art. Daisy poured her pain and fears into drawings and sketches. Soon, she began feeling stalked by a stranger. Threatening messages are read, and the stalker even showed up at her house repeatedly. It felt like a nightmare from her past had returned to torment her. Daisy sought help from the police, but her pleas fell on deaf ears. To make matters worse, she discovered that the second key to her house was missing. She suspected the stalker had stolen it. Then, on August 4, 2020, the police were called to Daisy's house by Melinda. Daisy's life took a tragic turn. Her mother, Melinda, couldn't reach her and feared the worst. She urgently called the police, asking them to check on Daisy. When they arrived, Daisy was home, visibly scared. However, no intruders were found nearby, and the police left. Later, Daisy video called her boyfriend, sobbing and expressing her unbearable pain. She retrieved a gun from her desk drawer and took her own life. Emergency services were alerted, but it was too late. Daisy passed away at just 23 years old, becoming the third family member to leave prematurely. Melinda struggled with the loss, posting daily on social media, reminiscing about Daisy and apologizing. A few months later, she left a final post with an old photo of all her children together. She admitted she couldn't bear the pain and chose to end her life, echoing Daisy's tragic fate. The once large, happy family of 6 was now reduced to just brothers Charlie and Melinda. They wanted to keep some of Daisy's belongings as a memento, as they discovered that the salon where she worked had been robbed. The albums containing her exclusive sketches were stolen. As for Matthew Barnett, his life took a different path. After graduating from a prestigious college, he followed in his influential grandfather's footsteps. Upon learning about the deaths of his mother and Daisy Coleman, he expressed condolences online. When the news broke that 77-year-old billionaire Nobu had with 22-year-old Arata, the entire nation of Japan was taken aback. The surprise turned to shock when, merely 3 months into their marriage, Nobu was found dead under mysterious circumstances. The investigation quickly zeroed in on his young bride, who displayed a curious lack of emotion over his demise. Despite the suspicious elements surrounding her, the absence of definitive proof made it difficult for authorities to formally charge her with the crime. Questions arose: who exactly was Nobu, and what motives could his wife have had for allegedly orchestrating such a heinous act? The investigation not only unearthed clues, but also unveiled Nobu's controversial history with over 4,000 women. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sunny, and today we're diving into the bizarre tale of Nobu. This story is undoubtedly among the most unusual ones I've encountered. As I've mentioned in previous episodes, Japan boasts an impressive safety record, making the instances of murder all the more jarring and complex. For those intrigued by true crime, mysterious narratives, and bone-chilling tales, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe, grab a cup of coffee, and let's get into it with the peculiar case of Nobu. Today's journey takes us to the southern reaches of Japan, to the city of Tanabe in Wakayama Prefecture. Tanabe serves not only as a historical landmark, but also as a vital hub for both land and sea transportation in the region. Despite its significance, Tanabe maintains the charm of a tranquil coastal city, home to some 65,000 residents. As we delve deeper into the enigmatic case of Nobu and his untimely demise, it becomes clear that the tranquil appearance of Tanabe City belies the complexity and darkness of this mystery. The story of Nobu, a man whose wealth and personal life had been the subject of much public fascination, takes a grim turn with his sudden death, leaving the community and the nation to grapple with a whirlwind of speculation and disbelief. Nobu, known for his extravagant lifestyle and a long history of romantic entanglements, had lived a life that many found hard to comprehend. His marriage to the much younger Aratha added another layer of intrigue to his already controversial existence. The stark age difference between the couple, combined with Nobu's notorious past, set the stage for widespread speculation and rumor mongering. Yet, nothing could prepare the public for the news of his death, a puzzle that would challenge the very fabric of what was believed possible in the safe, orderly society of Japan. The investigation into Nobu's death unfolded like a labyrinth, with each clue seeming to lead only to more questions. Arata, at the center of this storm, remained an enigma. Her apparent indifference to her husband's death struck many as unnatural, perhaps a sign of guilt, yet her demeanor, in the absence of hard evidence, left law enforcement and the public alike in a state of limbo. Who was this young woman, and what connection, if any, did she have to the fate of Nobu? As authorities dug deeper, they uncovered details of Nobu's life that painted a picture of a man who was as complex as he was wealthy. His relationships with over 4,000 women were not just a testament to his lavish lifestyle, but also hinted at the complicated interpersonal dynamics that might hold the key to understanding his sudden demise. The question of motive loomed large. What could drive someone to commit such a heinous act, assuming foul play was involved? Was it jealousy, greed, revenge, or something yet unseen? As we explore the intricate details of this case, we find ourselves confronted with the darker aspects of human nature and the mysteries that lie within seemingly straightforward narratives. The case of Nobu is a reminder that behind the facade of wealth and public persona, there are layers of complexity that often go unnoticed until tragedy strikes. In our next segment, we'll dive into the investigation's findings, examine the potential motives behind Nobu's death, and explore how this case has impacted the local community and beyond. Stay tuned and remember, the truth is often stranger and more intricate than fiction. Grab your coffee and let's continue unraveling the mystery of Nobu's demise. Nestled in the southern expanse of the Kii Peninsula, Tanabe is a city that harmoniously blends the natural beauty of its coastal and mountainous geography with a rich cultural heritage, particularly noted for its contributions to Japan's fishing and agriculture sectors. Known especially for its succulent oranges and uboshi, a traditional Japanese pickled plum, Tanabe has carved out a reputation for these agricultural delights. Despite its serene charm and vital economic role, Tanabe has experienced a gradual decline in population over the years, shrinking to half its size since the 1940s. It was against this backdrop of a slowly transforming Tanabe that the Nozaki family called home. Born into this changing world on April 13, 1941, Rime Nozaki was the third of 7 children. Life in a bustling household meant Ren often found himself lost in the shuffle, necessitating a degree of self-reliance from a young age. Despite his parents' love, Ren was known as something of a troublemaker, frequently clashing with his siblings and facing challenges at school, including bullying and poor academic performance. These difficulties led him to forego further education in favor of contributing to the family's income by working in their local liquor store. The Nozaki family, not particularly affluent, welcomed his assistance. During these formative years, Ren developed a relentless drive for financial success, a passion that seemed to be sparked by both necessity and ambition. He was determined to do whatever it took to improve the store's profitability while simultaneously ensuring he had some personal financial independence. As time passed, the inevitable cycle of life saw Ren's parents pass away, leaving him and his siblings their inheritance. It was with this inheritance that Ren made a pivotal decision to venture into the world of entrepreneurship, leveraging the financial boost to lay the foundation for what would become a vast business empire. Ren's journey from a troublesome schoolboy to a business mogul is a testament to his unwavering focus on wealth accumulation and financial independence. His early experiences in Tanabe, from the family liquor store to his initial taste of business success, set the stage for a life that would be filled with both controversy and accomplishment. The city of Tanabe, with its declining population and tranquil lifestyle, remained an integral part of this story, a reminder of the humble beginnings from which one of its most infamous sons rose to prominence. Embarking on a business path that was morally ambiguous at best, Ren Nozaki's initial foray into the realm of entrepreneurship was not through what many would consider noble means. He became what was essentially a glorified loan shark, operating in a time when regulatory oversight on lending was virtually non-existent. During this era, the constraints that now cap interest rates at 20% to prevent predatory lending practices were absent, allowing individuals like Ren to operate with impunity. His ventures into this dark finance, or yamakin, as it's colloquially known in Japanese, a contraction of yami kinyu, meaning dark finance, epitomized the ruthless pursuit of profit at the expense of others, exploiting the financial desperation of people to build his wealth. This approach to business inevitably led to further estrangement between Ren and his siblings. Their relationship, already fraught with tension, was severely tested as Ren delved deeper into these questionable methods of wealth accumulation. His disregard for the ethical implications of his actions widened the rift within the family, casting a shadow over his character and the legitimacy of his entrepreneurial spirit. Despite the morally dubious nature of his initial success, Ren's ambition was not limited to the loan sharking business. He diversified his interests, venturing into scrap metal collection, real estate development, and even door-to-door condom sales. Reports from the Times suggest that these additional ventures did not turn out to be particularly profitable, hinting that the lion's share of his wealth was indeed amassed through the exploitation of debtors. However, Ren's persistence in the world of business eventually led him to real estate, where he would make the fortunes that cemented his status as a successful, albeit controversial, businessman. Adding to his notorious reputation was a conviction for tax evasion, further tarnishing his public image and cementing his persona as an entrepreneur who skirted the edges of legality and morality. Despite the dubious means through which he accumulated his wealth, Ren's financial success allowed him to indulge in a lavish lifestyle and a series of personal exploits that were as controversial as his business practices. Ren's personal life, particularly his romantic entanglements, became as much a topic of public fascination as his business dealings. With wealth came notoriety, and with notoriety came an ever-increasing number of romantic partners. It's here that Ren's life story takes yet another turn, veering into the realms of personal indulgence and excess. His pursuit of wealth was mirrored by a pursuit of pleasure, leading to a complicated and controversial personal life that would eventually intertwine with his professional endeavors in unexpected and dramatic ways. Ren Nozaki's reputation as a flamboyant and unorthodox businessman only grew with each passing year, painting the picture of a man who lived as boldly in his personal life as he did in the business world. His relationships, numbering in the thousands, were talked about with a mix of awe and disapproval, showcasing a lifestyle that many found hard to understand or accept. This aspect of his life, marked by its sheer excess, became as much a part of his identity as his wealth. As Nozaki navigated through the complexities of his business and personal life, his ventures into real estate began to flourish, significantly augmenting his wealth. His success in real estate seemed to provide a semblance of legitimacy to his otherwise controversial career, allowing him to establish a more respectable facade in the public eye. However, this did not mean he left his previous ventures behind. The shadow of his past as a loan shark and his conviction for tax evasion lingered, contributing to a mixed public perception that oscillated between admiration for his entrepreneurial spirit and disdain for his ethical lapses. Nozaki's wealth allowed him to indulge in a lifestyle that few could imagine, but it also isolated him in many ways. His relationships, often seen as transactions or conquests, highlighted a life filled with luxury but lacking in genuine connection. The question of whether his wealth could buy happiness lingered beneath the surface of his extravagant existence. The complexity of Ren Nozaki's character made him a subject of fascination and speculation. To some, he was a self-made success story, a man who rose from modest beginnings to achieve incredible wealth and status. To others, he was a cautionary tale of ambition run amok, a man whose ethical compromises and personal excesses led to a life of emptiness despite his financial achievements. His marriage to the much younger Arata was perhaps the most public and controversial chapter of his personal life. The age difference between them, combined with Nozaki's notorious background, fueled widespread speculation and judgment. The sudden and mysterious circumstances of his death only months after their marriage added a dark twist to his already complex narrative, transforming his life story into a true crime saga that captivated the nation. The investigation into Nozaki's death would unearth more than just the details of a mysterious demise. It would shine a light on the darker corners of his life and legacy. As authorities delved deeper, the public was left to grapple with the dichotomy of Ren Nozaki, a man whose pursuit of success knew no bounds, but who, in the end, remained an enigma, a figure as captivating in death as he was in life. In this unfolding story, the lines between ambition and excess, between love and transaction, blur. Nozaki's life serves as a mirror to the complexities of human nature, challenging onlookers to ponder the true cost of wealth and the pursuit thereof. As the case progresses, it promises not only to reveal the circumstances of his untimely demise, but also to offer a reflection on the values and choices that define a life. Fascinated by women, he held the belief that sexual encounters were the central purpose of existence. In his travels from door to door selling condoms, he subtly offered additional, more intimate services to women he perceived as solitary. It seemed his strategies often bear fruit. Known as a prosperous playboy, his escapades, both paid and unpaid, with numerous women were well documented. He reportedly expended over 3 billion yen, the equivalent of about 26 million USD, on interactions with over 4,000 women throughout the years. When a Japanese broadcaster inquired about his actions, he openly stated his approach to women he found attractive, promising 400,000 yen in exchange for their company. His expenditures weren't confined to personal encounters. He was also known to lavish money in nightclubs, particularly in Keishinchi, a renowned entertainment district in Osaka. His lifestyle, however, was not without consequences. His tendency to swindle both acquaintances and strangers alike led to numerous conflicts, and in 1998, he was reportedly stabbed by someone he had attempted to defraud in a loan sharking scheme. As loan sharking became less profitable, he turned his attention to his family's liquor store, which had seen growth in both size and revenue. His wealth and notoriety received a further boost in 2016 with the publication of his autobiography, Don Joan of Kishu. Released in December of that year, the book detailed his journey to affluence. Despite its focus on his financial ascent, the autobiography struggled to gain widespread popularity. However, it wasn't until his story was featured in an episode of AIM Talk, a popular TV show in Japan, that his book gained significant attention. Combined with a few interviews, this media exposure catapulted his autobiography to bestseller status, irrespective of its literary quality. At this point, Rene had amassed a fortune that allowed him almost any luxury. Exotic cars, multiple properties, first-class global travel, and expensive yachts were just a part of his opulent lifestyle. He was known for extravagantly attempting to win over women he found attractive by attaching free money to letters as a lure, primarily in hopes of intimate encounters. By 2017, at the age of 77, Rime had entered what many would consider his golden years, yet he showed no signs of slowing down, particularly in his romantic endeavors. Japan is known for its high life expectancy, a fact Rime attributed to his own longevity, claiming in his autobiography that he avoided smoking, drugs, and stimulants despite his prolific number of sexual partners. That year marked a turning point for him. After 2 failed marriages, he was ready to find true love, which he did with Anna, a woman 55 years his junior. Rimne had previously been married twice, resulting in divorce each time, with no close companions except for his trusted dachshund named Emi. He often humorously mentioned that Emi would inherit his empire should he pass away. His encounter with Anna in the autumn of 2017 was, by his account, faked. Despite the vast age difference, she was only 22. They connected almost immediately after a chance meeting, or perhaps a staged stumble, at Tokyo Han Airport. Though initially just another conquest among thousands, it quickly became much more significant to him, and they were married within months. Aina, born in 1996, was significantly younger than Rine. Originating from Sapporo on Japan's northern island, Hokkaido, she came from a relatively affluent family, which afforded her luxuries such as designer brands and high-quality foods. Reen was not driven academically and faced bullying, leading to her being quite reserved during her school years. However, in her mid-teens, her personality began to change as she started to indulge in expensive fashion and beauty, supported financially by her parents. This newfound interest in aesthetics and wealth led her to pursue a career in beauty and makeup. To supplement her income, she allegedly also engaged in sex work and appeared in adult films, underscoring a complex narrative intertwined with themes of ambition, desire, and the search for love amidst unconventional circumstances. Saki's move to Tokyo, ostensibly to pursue her career as a beautician, was shadowed by her infatuation with a host from a bar in Sapporo. She had been lavishing him with attention and money, up to 150,000 yen, around $1,000 for his company. When he decided to relocate to Tokyo, she didn't hesitate to follow. However, their relationship, built on financial transactions rather than emotional connection, soon disintegrated. By then, Saki had set her sights on a new, more lucrative target, Rin Nobu, the so-called Don Juan of Kishu. Their meeting at an airport led to a whirlwind romance, culminating in marriage just a few months later. Rin, perhaps eager to ensure his young bride's happiness and loyalty, offered her a contract absolving her of any traditional domestic duties and providing her with a generous monthly allowance of 1 million yen. It seemed Rin was content to spend his twilight years in comfort and companionship with Saki, away from his notorious past. The couple, often seen with Rin's beloved dog, Emi, enjoyed a seemingly idyllic life filled with leisurely walks, shopping trips in Rin's Mercedes, and dinners at upscale restaurants. This peaceful existence suggested that Rime had finally found a semblance of domestic bliss. However, this tranquil period was short-lived. Merely 3 months into their marriage, Rime's life came to an abrupt end. But the seeds of this tragic conclusion were sown 18 days earlier with another sorrowful Emi, the death of his cherished dog, Emi. On May 6, 2018, Rime was awakened by Emi's distressing yelps. The dog was suffering from uncontrollable fits and severe pain. Despite Rime's readiness to seek veterinary help, Emi passed away in his arms within minutes, leaving him heartbroken. Emi had been more than a pet. She was his constant companion and source of unconditional love for over a decade. The loss left Rime enveloped in grief, a profound sadness that was compounded by the loony tragedy of his own demise. In his mourning, Rime arranged for a monk to conduct the ceremony for Emi, a final farewell to his loyal friend, unaware of the fate that awaited him. The circumstances surrounding Emi's sudden demise were undeniably peculiar. Despite her advanced age, she had been in excellent health, showing no signs of illness or ailments. Her unexpected passing left Rin utterly bewildered. However, his bewilderment would soon be overshadowed by his own tragic fate. On the fateful Emi morning of May 24th, just 18 days after Emi's demise, Rime himself was discovered deceased. He was found nearly nude, slumped over on his bedroom couch in a disturbing posture. An autopsy revealed an alarmingly high concentration of stimulants in his system, a dosage far beyond what would be considered lethal. The cause of death was determined to be acute stimulant poisoning, resulting from the ingestion of a massive quantity of stimulants in one instance. This revelation presented a perplexing contradiction to those familiar with Rime's public persona. In his writings and public statements, he adamantly voiced his opposition to drugs and stimulants. Moreover, analysis of his hair indicated no long-term drug use. Furthermore, there were no signs of injection marks on his body, suggesting that the stimulant was consumed orally. This discrepancy led investigators to consider the possibility that both Rin's and perhaps even Emi's deaths were not merely tragic accidents but deliberate acts of foul play. The sudden shift in focus transformed Rina's residence into a scene of intense scrutiny by detectives, eager to unravel the mystery behind the deaths haunting the once tranquil abode. Surveillance footage revealed that in the hours leading up to Rine's death, only 2 individuals entered its property, his wife and his cleaner. The cleaner had spent most of the day with Rine, assisting him in arranging a funeral for Emi, his beloved dog. Around 4:00 p.m., the cleaner left briefly to run errands and returned around 6:30 p.m. Meanwhile, Saki remained downstairs while Rime went upstairs to make phone calls. Later that evening, they heard thumping noises from upstairs, prompting the cleaner to ask Saki to check on him. However, she seemed unconcerned, and it wasn't until 10:00 p.m. that the cleaner once again urged her to investigate. It was then that they discovered Rin's lifeless body in his bedroom. Given the circumstances, it seemed unlikely that Rime had intended to take his own life. The burning question remained: who had administered the lethal dose of stimulants? That only 2 individuals with access to Rin and the opportunity to administer the stimulants were his wife and his cleaner. However, the cleaner, who had been with Rin for over a decade, had no apparent motive or benefit to harm him. Thus, suspicion fell squarely on Saki, his 22-year-old wife of only 3 months. Some speculated that Saki may have been a gold digger, marrying Rin for financial gain. With Reen's vast wealth, estimated at 5 billion yen, approximately $33 million USD, she stood to inherit a substantial fortune upon his death. Moreover, her demeanor following Reen's passing, reportedly emotionless and preoccupied with her smartphone, even his funeral, raised eyebrows. Despite mounting suspicion, investigators lack concrete evidence to charge Saki with murder. Attempts to find toxic substances in Ini's body prove inconclusive due to the advanced state of decomposition. Nevertheless, detectives were determined to pursue justice. In May 2021, 3 years after Reen's and Imi's deaths, Saki was arrested on suspicion of murder. With only a 30-day window to detain a suspect under Japanese law, authorities faced a race against time. Over the following weeks, evidence emerged implicating Saki further. Her phone data contradicted her plans about her movements on the day of Reen's death. Additionally, her internet search history revealed inquiries about drugs and stimulants shortly before Imi's demise. Forensic analysis uncovered traces of narcotics in the kitchen and vacuum cleaner, while her phone records indicated communication with a known drug dealer.
These damning revelations painted a troubling picture, casting serious doubt on Saki's innocence and leaving investigators determined to uncover the truth behind the deaths that had shrouded Reen's once peaceful abode. The technological evidence further solidified suspicions against Saki, confirming that both she and Reen were indeed in the same location at the time of his death. Reports surfaced suggesting that Reen had contemplated divorce in the weeks leading up to his demise due to Saki's reluctance to live with him in his Tab residence. Meanwhile, Reen had already found a new partner, adding to the strain in their relationship. The situation worsened when, just 2 months after Reen's death, Saki convened the shareholders' meeting at their residence, attending it alone. During the meeting, she appointed herself as president of the company and awarded herself an exorbitant annual salary of $1.5 million, along with a personal bonus of $400,000. Investigators, upon apprehending her in Tokyo, uncovered her plans to flee to Dubai with the substantial funds she had amassed. With this damning evidence at their disposal, Aina was formally charged with the murder of Reen Nobu. However, despite her arrest nearly 3 years ago, she awaits trial, and progress on the case has been notably slow. Concerns arise as there have been no updates on her current whereabouts, leading to speculation that she may have been discreetly released. Proving Saki's guilt presents a formidable challenge for authorities, especially considering the difficulty in substantiating poison-related offenses, particularly after such a considerable amount of time has passed. Despite the mounting evidence against her, Saki adamantly maintains her innocence, professing her love for Reen. Friends of Rene corroborate his intention to divorce Saki, with one revealing that he had been asked to be present during the confrontation. This detail fuels speculation that Saki may have learned of the impending divorce and impulsively resorted to murder to secure her inheritance. As the legal proceedings linger, uncertainty looms over the fate of Rene's estate, which remains frozen. The tragic deaths of both Reen and Imi cast a somber shadow over the unresolved case. While Saki is entitled to the presumption of innocence until proven guilty, suspicions surrounding her persist, with many attributing to her the unsettling aura of a potential gold-digging murderer. Ultimately, the truth behind Rene's untimely demise remains shrouded in uncertainty, leaving lingering questions and the sense of injustice. As the investigation unfolds, only time will reveal the full extent of Saki's involvement and whether justice will prevail for the victims and their loved ones. Indianapolis is a city of contrasts. However, for the Blackburn family, what was meant to be a peaceful haven and a home filled with God's grace turned into a site of violent tragedy. On the morning of November 10, 2015, a car was parked outside a home on Sunnyfield Court. Davy Blackburn had just returned from his daily workout at the gym. He was about to get out of the car when a phone call delayed him for a few minutes. After finishing the call, he got out of the car and went into the house. As he opened the door, he froze and his gym bag fell from his hands. His wife lay on the living room floor in a pool of blood. Davy, confused and in shock, rushed to his wife's side, checked for a pulse, and urgently dialed emergency services. The young woman was still alive. The living room was in complete disarray, with items scattered everywhere and her purse emptied.
From the second floor, the cries of a small child could be heard. Emergency services arrived at the house within 8 minutes, cordoned off the area, and filled the house with police officers and investigators. The victim, 28-year-old Amanda Blackburn, was rushed to the hospital. But let's go back to the beginning to ensure we don't miss any important details of this tragic story. Amanda Grace Bures was born on July 31, 1987, in Muskegon, Michigan. She attended school in Indianapolis, Indiana, until her family moved to Elkhart in 1995. Amanda graduated from Elkhart Christian Academy in 2006, and by 2008, she earned an associate's degree from Pensacola Christian College in Pensacola, Florida. Amanda grew up in a deeply religious family where Christianity and the power of God's Word were paramount. Her father was the lead pastor of First Baptist Church in Elkhart, Indiana. From a young age, Amanda knew church sermons and psalms by heart and honored them unconditionally. While other children were eager to grow up, attend parties, and experience romantic love, Amanda's heart was devoted to Jesus, and she dreamed of serving Him. God loved Amanda deeply, for He had created her in the likeness of an angel, a blonde-haired, slender girl with an open, kind smile and sincere intentions. Her beauty was matched by her pure thoughts and heart, always filled with love for her neighbor. As a teenager, Amanda took a vow of chastity, pledging not to kiss a man until she was married, and she remained true to her word. Her heart fluttered when she met her true love, Davy Blackburn, a native of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, who studied religion at Southern Wesleyan University and came from a Christian family. Davy and Amanda met on a blind date at a Hawk Nelson Christian band concert organized by her sister and Davy's best friend. Although they attended different colleges, they spent every vacation together, cherishing a pure, platonic love free from earthly lusts. They enjoyed walks, shared their innermost thoughts, and delighted in excerpts from church books. Before returning to school once, Davy and Amanda had a playful milkshake drinking contest, which Amanda lost. Davy jokingly called her a milk girl, and looking at her, he realized she was the one he wanted to marry. Despite their long-distance relationship, they remained close through constant messages, calls, and cherished every vacation together. Their respect for the sanctity of their relationship led them to visit a psychologist to learn how to communicate effectively. On August 1, 2008, Amanda and Davy Blackburn were married. After the wedding, Davy told friends that their first kiss confirmed a special bond ordained by God. For the first 4 years of their marriage, the Blackburns lived in South Carolina, where Davy served as an associate pastor at New Spring Church under Pastor Perry Nogle. However, Davy desired more and proposed moving to Indianapolis to start a new church for youth. Initially reluctant to leave her family, Amanda eventually agreed, believing that God had significant plans for them. In 2012, the Blackburns moved to Indianapolis to plant an independent, high-profile church on the north side. Their religious organization focused on young people, featuring weekly videos on their website about relationship advice, conflict resolution, and biblical perspectives on intimate relationships. In 2014, the family welcomed their firstborn child, Weston Blackburn. They enjoyed a happy life in a comfortable home on a quiet street with a fulfilling job at their church, which attracted many young followers. However, the Blackburns' perfect harmony was shattered on November 10, 2015. Ambulance crews arrived at their residence in the 2800 block of Sunnyfield Court around 8 a.m. Amanda, who was pregnant, was rushed to the hospital and placed on a ventilator, undergoing resuscitative measures. Tragically, Amanda passed away the next day, along with her unborn baby girl, who was named Evie Grace. Her death prompted an outpouring of sympathy and prayers on social media for an extended period. As friends, family members, and strangers mourned Amanda with public posts, on November 11th, the day she was officially declared dead, Davy released an official statement. He said that Amanda had made it her life's calling to love and serve everyone she knew, and her mission was to know Jesus as her personal savior and to share him with multitudes. He believed that through her death and legacy, more people would come to a saving faith in Christ. Davy expressed certainty that Amanda wanted him to continue the work they had started in Indy, affirming his belief that God would turn their tragedy into triumph and that the best was yet to come. The murder of the pregnant woman was a devastating blow not only to her Orthodox family, but also a shock to the entire state. People demanded justice for Amanda and her unborn child, insisting that the perpetrator be found and punished. In his first interview after the incident, Davy Blackburn recounted finding Amanda injured and unconscious on the living room floor. She was partially naked, with her underwear lying nearby, and was lying in a pool of blood, face down. Davy told investigators that he had left the house around 6 a.m. to go to the fitness center, leaving the door unlocked as he usually did. It's unclear if locking the door would have deterred the criminals, but it would have made it harder for them to enter the house so easily, possibly giving Amanda time to contact emergency services. The attack left Amanda with 3 gunshot wounds, one of which was to the head. No arrests were made in the days immediately following the crime, but police quickly determined that Davy Blackburn was not involved. During the trial, Davy Blackburn's testimony was supplemented by that of Scott Floyd, the first emergency medical paramedic from the Indianapolis Fire Department who arrived at the home after Davy's 911 call. Scott testified that Davy was outside at the end of the driveway with bloody hands when they arrived and appeared very calm. Davy reportedly did not understand what had happened to Amanda, claiming she was lying on the floor and he could not wake her up. He stated that he had come home from the gym around 7:30 a.m. and continued his phone call with his friend Kenneth Wagner in the driveway, occasionally peeking through the front door window to check on baby Weston. He said he finished his call, entered the house at 8:10 a.m. and found Amanda lying face down on the floor. He thought she was sick or unconscious and called emergency services at 8:22 a.m., taking 12 minutes to make the call. In an emergency, 12 minutes is a long time. Davy repeatedly said he thought something had gone wrong with the pregnancy and that Amanda might have gotten dizzy and fallen. However, questions arose about why he did not notice the brain matter about 5 feet away from her body. Emergency room Dr. Scott Floyd testified that the blood on Amanda's head was coagulated, leading him to believe that the gunshot wound had occurred a couple of hours earlier. However, these details were not made public in the trial transcripts. Davy was asked if he had called anyone else after calling 911. He said he had called his father. Defense attorneys did not cross-examine Davy Blackburn, and authorities corroborated his story with surveillance footage from the gym, clearing him as a suspect. An autopsy conducted on November 12th revealed that Amanda had suffered a gunshot wound to the back of her head, a gunshot wound to her lower left arm that penetrated her biceps, and a through-and-through gunshot wound to her upper back. Additionally, she had multiple scratches on her left cheek, a split lip, and a knocked-out lower tooth, indicating a possible struggle with her attacker. A thorough investigation was launched, including examining CCTV footage from nearby streets and interviewing neighbors and acquaintances. A neighbor reported hearing gunshots about 35 minutes after Davy left the house. Another neighbor, Reginald Townsell, expressed shock, stating that their street was not the type of neighborhood where such a shooting could occur, and that the Blackburns didn't deserve this tragedy. The neighbors regarded the Blackburn family as wonderful and truly loving people. Based on Amanda's injuries and the missing bank cards and MacBook bag, the initial theory was robbery. Police determined that on the morning of November 10, 2015, several emergency calls reported home invasions at nearby homes. Around 5:20 a.m., one woman reported waking up to find her cell phone, laptop, purse, and keys missing, along with her car from the parking lot. The sliding glass door to her apartment was open. 3 hours later, another woman reported a burglary at a home on Sunnyfield Court where 4 televisions, a MacBook Pro, a Tiffany pearl necklace, a pink women's sweater, a remote control, a bag of oranges, and bedding were missing. 5 minutes after that, Davy Blackburn made his emergency call. Lieutenant Richard Riddle of the Indianapolis Police Department stated that police were investigating a connection between Amanda's homicide and other burglaries in the same neighborhood that morning. While police kept many details of the investigation confidential, they released images of possible suspects from one of the burglarized homes, asking the public for assistance in identifying them. Davy Blackburn expressed confidence that the police were doing everything possible to catch his wife's perpetrator. Investigators assured that they had significant resources and leads, giving them confidence that they would soon identify and apprehend those responsible. The key clues used to track down the three suspects were a stolen pink sweater, cell phone records, and an ATM receipt. The receipt and sweater were found in a stolen Chrysler Sebring used during the robberies.
Authorities recovered the vehicle, which provided further leads in the investigation. On November 11th, near the Blackburns' home, the debit card listed on the ATM receipt matched Amanda Blackburn's stolen card. Investigators obtained a warrant to examine the ATM camera, which showed the driver covering his face with a stolen pink sweater. DNA testing, surveillance footage, and witness testimonies were crucial in identifying the suspects. DNA testing from the sweater confirmed that Jaylen Watson was one of the suspects, marking the first major breakthrough in the case. Cell phone records played a significant role in the investigation. Watson's number was already in the database due to his parole for another burglary, and Diana Gordon's cell phone records were also obtained. These records indicated that Watson's and Gordon's phones were in the area during the crime and near the Chase Bank where Amanda's debit card was used. Larry Taylor was identified through further examination of surveillance footage and tracking his phone number and address. Reports surfaced that a gun had been found near the Blackburn home, delivered to the Broad Ripple Fire Department by a man who claimed to have found it outside the couple's home. The gun was analyzed by crime lab technicians and after 2 weeks of investigation was confirmed to be the murder weapon. Police charged 18-year-old Larry Taylor and 21-year-old Jaylen Watson with Amanda Blackburn's murder. A third suspect, 24-year-old Diana Gordon, was arrested for a parole violation but was not charged with a felony as he did not enter the Blackburn home. When questioned, Larry Taylor admitted to shooting Amanda twice, claiming she jumped on him and he didn't want her to scratch him. He then leaned over her body, shot her in the back of the head, and watched her bleed to death. The criminal trio had initially come to rob the Blackburn house, believing it to be an easy target as the front door was left unlocked when Davy went to the gym. Inside, they confronted Amanda. To keep her out of the way, Taylor hit her with a gun. Watson and Gordon, seeing the situation, decided to leave with the bank cards they had stolen earlier. They attempted to withdraw $500 from one ATM unsuccessfully, but managed to get $1,400 from another, where they were caught on CCTV. They then drove back to the Blackburn house to pick up Taylor. During their absence, Amanda regained consciousness and lunged at Taylor, leading to a struggle. Taylor tackled her and afterwards put the stolen debit cards in the car of an accomplice who had gone to an ATM. Upon returning, Taylor admitted to shooting Amanda. Court documents revealed that the Blackburn home was the third target of the November 10th crime spree by Taylor, Watson, and Gordon. In the first break-in, they stole a laptop, wallet, and car while the resident was asleep inside the home. They discovered they were being recorded by a video camera but simply moved on. The group drove to another home, broke in through a patio window, and stole 4 televisions, a laptop, jewelry, a bag of oranges, and a pink sweater, which eventually helped police identify them. Court documents outlined the evidence police collected against the suspects. The most crucial piece of evidence was Watson's DNA on the pink sweater taken during the second burglary, which was then used to cover his face from a surveillance camera as he tried to withdraw cash using Amanda Blackburn's bank card. Watson and Gordon cooperated with the investigation in return for reduced sentences. Larry Taylor waived his right to remain silent and admitted to being near the scene of the burglary, though he claimed to be so confused that he couldn't remember clearly. Formal charges were filed by the county prosecutor. Larry Taylor faced 13 charges, including felony murder for knowingly and willfully killing Amanda Blackburn. Jaylen Watson was charged with a felony, and both he and Taylor faced multiple charges of burglary, robbery, and theft. Diana Gordon, already in custody due to a parole violation, also faced burglary charges. A fourth person, who knew about the crimes but did not participate, was questioned and released. The Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department's Violent Crimes Unit worked with the gang unit and federal marshals to arrest Taylor. Police Chief Rick Hite praised the cooperation that led to the arrest, noting that detectives worked tirelessly without sleep to solve the murder. Assistant U.S. Attorney Josh Minkler and Prosecutor Terry Curry were instrumental in bringing justice. Given that Amanda was pregnant, prosecutors considered additional charges related to the fetus. Although Amanda's underwear was removed and her shirt was pulled up, there was no evidence to support rape charges.
Larry Taylor's first trial in December 2021 was declared a mistrial when it was discovered that a juror had shared information about the case with other jurors. The final trial took place in October 2022 with more thorough jury selection. Over 100 potential jurors were called, each filling out a 16-page questionnaire to ensure a fair verdict. Larry Joe Taylor was sentenced to 86 years in the Indiana State Correctional Institution for the murder of Amanda Blackburn and additional charges related to burglary. Deanna Gordon and Jalen Watson agreed to plea deals and testified against Taylor. They received sentences ranging from 20 to 35 years in prison. Both Jalen Watson and Larry Taylor are currently incarcerated in the Marion County Jail. In Indiana, a murder conviction can result in 45 to 60 years in prison, with some cases punishable by life imprisonment or the death penalty. Prosecutors filed a motion to enhance Taylor's sentence, which could add an additional 20 years to his prison term. Because Amanda Blackburn was pregnant when she was brutally murdered, the case drew widespread attention and sympathy. Davy Blackburn, the church's pastor, expressed relief that those responsible for his wife's death had been caught and would no longer pose a threat. Amanda's death resonated with thousands, including the state's chief executive. Her funeral, held at a Christian church, was attended by more than 2,000 people, including Governor Mike Pence. The Resonate Church set up a donation page to help cover Amanda Blackburn's funeral and medical expenses. Davy Blackburn expressed hope in the judicial system, believing it would wisely address the pain caused by the perpetrators. Remarkably, he reported that he had chosen to forgive Amanda's killers. "I was very relieved to learn of the arrest," he told reporters. "Although everything inside me wants to hate, be angry, and despair, I choose the path of forgiveness, grace, and hope." Amanda Blackburn's case generated significant national and international media interest. Davy Blackburn transitioned from an anguished husband to a popular blogger, capitalizing on his tragedy by recording multiple podcasts and videos under the title Nothing Wasted. He began appearing on TV stations, discussing his wife's death, recounting the pain he had experienced, and retelling the tragic story. Despite the sorrowful context, he did not appear unhappy. Amanda's death brought Davy both fame and financial gain. He received an insurance payout after her death, raising suspicions about whether he might have intentionally left the door unlocked on November 10, 2015. What do you think? On March 2, 2016, Davy Blackburn purchased a new 5-bedroom, 4-bath home with a pool. He sold the house where Amanda was murdered. For someone who had lost his beloved wife, Davy appeared quite content. In July 2016, he posted a photo of his new home on his blog with the caption, "How happy I am to have pool parties in my new home." Davy Blackburn has since found happiness in a new marriage. Nothing is wasted. Serendipity. Turn your eyes to Jesus, gaze upon his marvelous countenance, and earthly things become strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. The Cape Flats region, located on the edge of Cape Town in South Africa, is known for its tough conditions. This area is marked by widespread poverty, the presence of gangs, and issues related to drug use. Situated on the flatlands to the southeast of the city's heart, communities such as Valhalla Park and Hines Park are where many families live, trying their best to overcome these challenges. However, these neighborhoods are also where dangerous gangs vie for wealth, influence, and dominance. In such a challenging environment, a young man named Cameron Wilson grew up. At just 17 years old, Cameron began a wave of violence that instilled fear across the Cape Flats. He was unusually cruel for someone so young, showing no compassion as he committed acts of rape, murder, and assault. Over a few years, he attacked many people, showing no regret for even the most horrific acts. Cameron's attacks were unpredictable and without any clear reason. He harmed people of all genders and ages, with no apparent link between them. His motives varied. He killed spontaneously for personal gain, for dominance, or simply for the sake of causing pain. It seemed as if he had an innate desire to harm others, which put him on the path to becoming one of the most feared criminals in South Africa's history. Cameron's first recorded act of violence occurred in October 2014. On that day, the 17-year-old Cameron had a loud argument with a man named Alfonso, which ended with Cameron fatally stabbing Alfonso. This incident was the beginning of a series of violent acts that would terrorize the community. In the neighborhood of Valhalla Park, a place known for its risks, Alfonso was on his usual route to his grandmother's house. It was a journey he made often without trouble. However, on this particular day, the calm was shattered by a loud dispute that caught the attention of the locals. They watched as Cameron hurried after Alfonso, confronted him, and then, with no second thoughts, stabbed him, leaving him to suffer a tragic fate on the pavement. The incident didn't go unnoticed. Several people saw what happened, yet fear silenced them. Cameron's father was a high-ranking member of the 28S, a feared prison gang in South Africa, and people were scared of what might happen if they spoke up. Their fears were justified when just 3 days after Alfonso's death, Toya, a shopkeeper who had seen the murder, was found shot dead. Toya was a respected figure, known for his dedication and honesty in running his store and supporting his family. He wasn't involved with Cameron or aware of his violent tendencies. When Cameron entered his shop, Toya recognized him as Alfonso's attacker and asked him to leave, which led to an argument. Cameron left, and Toya tried to follow him, likely to inform the authorities. Tragically, shortly after, Toya's life was cruelly taken, just a short distance from his store. The community of Cape Flats was gripped by a deep-seated fear, a silence that was enforced by the threat of violence. This silence played a role in Cameron's growing boldness and the continuation of his violent acts. The police found it difficult to gather evidence against him because people were too scared to speak up. This lack of action from witnesses allowed Cameron to carry on with his crimes, seemingly without any consequences. This culture of fear only seemed to encourage Cameron further, and the Cape Flats were about to witness even more terrifying events. Cameron's ability to avoid punishment for his earlier crimes led him into a horrifying spree of violence. The community was constantly on edge, never knowing when or where he would strike next. In December 2014, just 2 months after Toya's murder, Cameron committed another cold-blooded act. On Christmas Day, Ernest, a young man of 20, was attacked. He and his girlfriend had been at a tavern in Hines Park, Cape Town, and on their way home, they realized they had lost a small bag of cannabis. While searching for it, Cameron suddenly confronted Ernest, demanding money. When Ernest had nothing to offer, Cameron brutally assaulted him with a screwdriver, leaving him to die. The violence didn't stop there. In April 2015, Cameron continued his spree, attacking 2 more people in separate incidents. One of them was Cody, a 20-year-old who was out walking with a friend. Cameron demanded to see what was in Cody's backpack, and when Cody refused, Cameron's response was swift and violent. He stabbed Cody, adding another victim to his growing list of assaults. Before escaping the scene, Cody Fander, despite severe injuries, miraculously survived the assault. Later that month, 17-year-old Dorney Davies fell prey to Cameron's violent tendencies. After visiting a friend, Dorney was crossing an open field on her way home when she encountered Cameron's cousin. Familiar with him from the neighborhood and considering him a friend, Dorney engaged in conversation without any apprehension. However, the situation took a dark turn when Cameron appeared, forcefully seized Dorney, and dragged her to a secluded spot.
In this isolated area, Cameron coerced his cousin into assaulting Dorney before telling him to step aside. Dorney desperately pleaded for her release, questioning Cameron's motives, but her pleas were ignored. Cameron then committed a heinous act against her. After the attack, Dorney managed to escape and ran for her life, but Cameron pursued and stabbed her in the neck, leaving her to die. Fortunately, Dorney was quickly taken to a hospital where she survived the brutal attack. Although she could identify Cameron as her assailant, the trauma of the unprovoked aggression left deep psychological scars. Cameron remained at large, continuing his series of violent acts. The reasons for his non-arrest post-attack are speculative, but it may involve witnesses' reluctance to come forward and the fear of retribution from Cameron's and his father's gang, which could have contributed to his evasion of justice. Cameron's assaults appeared indiscriminate, affecting individuals of various ages and genders, creating an atmosphere of widespread fear, despite the increasing number of victims. Cameron Wilson was a man who did very bad things and didn't get caught for a long time. In April 2015, he did something really terrible. He hurt a 16-year-old girl named Stacy Mahaly in a way that is too sad to talk about. Stacy was just going home from school with her friend Abigail Plates, who was also 16. They didn't know that meeting Cameron and his young friend would change their lives forever. At first, Cameron and his friend seemed okay, but then things got scary. Cameron showed a gun and made Stacy and Abigail go with them to a place where no one else was around. There he hurt both girls very badly. His young friend was watching to make sure no one came. After hurting them, Cameron told his friend to hurt the girls even more with a knife. Then, they did something called necklacing to the girls. This is usually done by people who want to punish someone they think did something wrong, but Cameron did it just to be mean. They put tires filled with gasoline around Stacy and Abigail's necks and set them on fire. They also threw rocks and bricks at them, which hurt them even more. The girls were left there, hurting a lot because of the fire. Stacy couldn't survive the terrible things that happened to her. She had many cuts and burns, and the doctors said she went through a lot of pain. But Abigail, even though she was hurt a lot too, stayed alive. She was very brave and told the police that Cameron Wilson and his friend were the ones who did this. Even though people were scared to say anything about Cameron, Abigail was brave enough to speak up. Her courage helped a lot in finding out the truth about what Cameron did. It's important to remember that this story is about something very sad and serious. If you or someone you know needs help because of something like this, please talk to someone who can help, like the police or a doctor. She knew for sure that Cameron was one of the bad guys and made sure he got caught. But even though Abigail saw everything and they had a lot of proof, Cameron was let out of jail soon after they caught him. Everyone was really surprised and upset that he was let go. People couldn't understand why someone who did something so terrible was allowed to be free. Some thought it showed that Cameron couldn't be touched, while others guessed that his dad's scary reputation with the 28s gang helped him get out. No one knows exactly why Cameron was let out, but it turned out to be a big mistake because he kept hurting people. After he was let out, Cameron didn't stop. In 2016, he hurt more people and the police kept hearing about it. One time, he beat up a 22-year-old woman just because she wouldn't give him her lighter. She was alone, and when she said she didn't have one, he got really mad and hit her until she passed out. Another time, he threatened a man with a knife to steal from him. When the man tried to stop him, Cameron stabbed him. The man had given Cameron his wallet and phone. But when Cameron wanted his watch too, the man said no and fought back. That made Cameron so mad that he stabbed the man. A man was hurt very badly and was bleeding a lot because Cameron took his things and ran away. The hurt man was taken to the hospital quickly, and he was lucky to stay alive after what happened. But he was hurt really bad and had to deal with those hurt for a long time. Cameron did something very mean to a lady who was by herself. He hit her hard with a hammer, and she got hurt on her head and other places too. She was so hurt that she could have died, but someone walking by saw her and got help. She went to the hospital fast and had a big surgery to help her get better. Cameron didn't care about people at all. He hurt people just because he wanted to, and he kept doing worse things. In September 2016, he did something awful to a young girl named Nikita Moore, who was only 18 years old. On the night of September 10th, 2016, Nikita told her dad she was going to a birthday party. It was the last time her dad saw her. The next day, a lady walking her dog found Nikita in a field near 8th Avenue. She wasn't wearing any clothes, and she had a lot of cuts from being stabbed. The police found out later that she was stabbed 98 times, and she had cuts all over her body. Her face was hurt very badly, and her jaw was broken. The worst part was that her private parts were cut in a very bad way. The way the blood was spread around showed that Nikita tried very hard to get away, but the person who hurt her chased her and brought her back to where she was hurt. There were marks on the ground and on Nikita's hands that showed she tried to fight back. When people found out what happened to Nikita, they were very sad and angry. Her family and friends couldn't believe someone could do something so terrible. It was a very sad time for everyone who knew her. Please note, this is a sensitive topic, and the details are quite upsetting. It's important to handle such information with care and respect for those involved. If you or someone you know needs support, it's crucial to reach out to local authorities or professional help. After the terrible loss of Lita, her mother Shireen was so shocked that she couldn't react to anything around her and needed medicine to help her stay calm. Her father Andrew was filled with so much sadness that he couldn't face seeing Lita after what happened to her. It was Lita's aunt who had to go through the heartbreaking task of seeing Lita for the last time. The police were very determined to find out who was responsible for hurting Lita. They started by talking to her family and friends to get clues. One of the first people they talked to was Lita's younger sister, Maria, who was 16 years old. Maria gave the police a very important piece of information that pointed them towards Cameron Wilson. Lita had known Cameron for a long time because he was related to the boyfriend of Lita's sister, Mercia. Cameron used to come over to Lita's house to hang out with his cousin, and that's how he met Lita. At first, they were just friendly, but after a while, Cameron started to show too much interest in Lita. Mercia told the police that Cameron wouldn't leave Lita alone and kept sending her messages that were not nice. He even got mad and threatened her when she said she didn't want to go out with him. Mercia remembered a scary day right before Lita was hurt. Cameron came into their house very angry, grabbed Lita, and put a knife close to her neck. He said that if Lita kept saying no to him, bad things would happen. On the day Lita was hurt, Cameron came to their house again without being invited. He had been drinking and told Lita not to go to a party because he didn't want her to be with other boys. Lita was scared, but still decided to go to the party. She didn't want to let Cameron's scary words stop her from living her life. But sadly, this choice led to something very bad happening. Maria also went to the same party as Lita that night. They got there at about 8 p.m., and the place, called Valhall Park Civic Center, was full of young people having fun, dancing, and talking. The room was bright with colorful lights, and music was playing loudly. Lita found her friends and was happy to see them, giving them hugs and laughing together. But then Cameron showed up at the party without being asked to come He looked for Lita and tried to talk to her, but he seemed very upset and even grabbed her arm and yelled at her. Lita was really scared and tried to get away from him. Mercia saw what was happening and quickly went to help her sister. It's very sad to talk about these things, and it's important to remember that this is a serious and sensitive story. If you or someone you know is going through a tough time because of something like this, it's really important to talk to someone who can help, like the police or a counselor. They can give support and make sure that the person who did the bad things is stopped. In the middle of a loud party, Maria saw her sister, Lita, in trouble. Cameron was there and he was making a scene. He was yelling and even pushed Maria aside when she tried to protect Lita. He grabbed Lita's hair and tried to take her away. But Lita's friends saw what was happening and came to help. They told Cameron to leave, but he was very angry and said that Lita was his and he could do what he wanted with her. Then he left the party, looking back at Lita with a mean look. Later that night, Cameron came back to the party. People saw him talking to Lita, and she looked upset, but like she had given up. After they talked, Lita left the party with Cameron, even though she didn't really want to. Maria was watching her sister all night and knew something wasn't right. She ran outside and asked Cameron where he was taking Lita. Cameron said they were just going to buy some wine, but Maria knew the stores were closed. She begged Lita not to go with him and reminded her of the scary things Cameron had said before. Lita didn't want to make a big problem and told Maria she would be okay. She promised to call if she needed help and then went with Cameron. That was the last time. Maria saw her sister. She wished she had done more to keep Lita from going with Cameron. The police think that Cameron took Lita to a quiet place near 8th Avenue and hurt her very badly. Lita tried to fight back, but Cameron was too strong for her. After hurting her a lot, he left her there. Cameron walked away without any sign of worry, leaving a scene that was too terrible to describe. The community of Cape Flats was already reeling from Lita Moore's tragic end when another awful discovery was made the next day, on September 11, 2016. A person found the body of 20-year-old Xavier Bester, not far from where Lita had been found. Xavier lived nearby and knew both Lita and Cameron. There were rumors that Xavier and Lita might have been close, but her family didn't think so. The way Xavier was hurt was a lot like what happened to Lita. He had been stabbed many times and was left in a hidden spot. The closeness of where Xavier and Lita were found and the timing made the police think the two sad events might be linked. As they looked more into it, people started to say they saw Xavier at the same party Lita went to. Some even said they saw him and Cameron arguing. After finding out what happened to Lita and Xavier, the police knew they had to catch Cameron. They worked very hard to find proof and make a strong case against him because he was a danger to everyone. They finally caught him on September 12, 2016. When he was arrested, he didn't seem to care at all and even smiled at the police. He kept saying he didn't do anything wrong, even though there was a lot of proof. He said he was at home with his mom the night Lita was hurt. His mom, Sylvia Wilson, said the same thing. But when people said they saw him with Lita at the party, Cameron started to say something different. Cameron claimed that on the night Lita was killed, he was with her. But it wasn't him who took her life. He said it was his friend, Xavier Bester, who did it because he was jealous. Cameron told everyone he tried to stop Xavier but couldn't. For the case of Alfonso F. Royan, Cameron said he wasn't even nearby. He was in another place, visiting a friend. He said he had no reason to hurt Alfonso and that the people who said they saw him were wrong. When it came to Stacy Mail, Cameron said he was at a family party when something bad happened to her. He thought the police should look at Stacy's boyfriend instead, saying he had heard bad things about him. Then when a 13-year-old boy said Cameron was involved, Cameron said it was actually the boy who did it, not him. About Toy Herstabber's death, Cameron said he didn't know her at all. He said the police made up things to make him look guilty and that someone was trying to blame him for something he didn't do. At first, Cameron said he was visiting family far away when Ernest Rasmus was killed. But when the police showed proof he was there, he changed his story. He said Ernest attacked him first, and he was only defending himself. Cameron had so many different stories that it was hard to believe. The police thought it was very unlikely that he was in all those places or that so many people would try to make him look guilty. As they looked more into Cameron's actions, they found out he might have done a lot of bad things. He was accused of 15 serious crimes, including hurting 5 people so badly that they died, as well as other violent acts and having guns he shouldn't have. During his time in court, Cameron acted like he didn't care. He laughed, made jokes, and didn't seem to feel sorry for the harm he caused to many people. When they told him what he was accused of, Cameron just smiled and said he didn't do it, even though there was a lot of proof. In June 2017, after a long trial that made many people feel very sad and angry, Cameron Wilson was found guilty of almost all the crimes, 13 out of 15. The courtroom was full of people who knew the victims. They cried and comforted each other when they heard the decision. For them, it was a mix of sadness and relief, because at last, there was justice. When the judge said Cameron was guilty, the courtroom was full of different feelings.